Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. It's the eve of the All-Ireland football final. Not quite the eve, but we're getting there. So myself and Rory have been joined by Eamonn Fitzmaurice and Kevin McStay. How's everybody doing?
Very good,
Morning,
Mike.
lads.
Great, Mikey.
Galway's resurgence is kind of it's shown up the lack of Galway pundits in our stable, Rory. So Kev, you're going to have to be an honorary Galway man for today. That's no problem for you, is it? I'm wearing the colours, obviously, because
all that I was saying to Eamonn here, all my kin are from Galway. My parents, obviously my grandparents, uncles and aunts, all my cousins, and so certainly we're wishing them the best. Looking over the fence though, in a strange sort of a way.
Yeah, you're looking over two fences, Kevin, on either side.
But I know, wishing them well. It's a good story. It's a good story for Connacht, and they certainly have the outsiders for sure, but they have a chance. No question.
More than a chance. As you all know, I'm wearing maroon for a reason. I backed them at the start of the championship. So this whole podcast is just you three trying to convince me why Galway aren't going to win the All Ireland on Sunday, because I'm thoroughly convinced. Éamonn, how is the mood in Kerry? Would you know there's an All Ireland final on Sunday?
Well, it took you less than a minute to get in the fact that you tipped Galway for the All Ireland.
You only do it for your benefit at this stage.
Compliments on that. No, there's a good buzz down here. In fairness, Mikey, the colours are up and people are starting to get excited about it. The quick turnaround is probably, a bit different. The 2 weeks, the fact as well that it's obviously the middle of the summer is slightly different as well. But nonetheless, there's great excitement around, and a lot of people really, really looking forward to the game now at this stage. And as I said, coming down from the Dublin game and that win, and then getting ready for a final, it's all kind of been a bit of a whirlwind. But I'm sure that's for those of us outside of the group, inside in the circle, I presume everything's very calm and focused and looking towards the weekend.
Sure, look, it's after the compressed season does mean you're kind of rattling from one final to another. I know my staff and me are chasing our hair trying to preview the final. I know Rory certainly is. And Rory, in the middle of all that, you got the Tipperary hurlers, and God knows, maybe even Brian Cody trying to steal thunder from football. Hurling just won't get off the stage, will it?
No, hurling is definitely trying to it's trying its best to grab as much oxygen, I think, as what Donald described it as last Sunday night. And I think, look, it was a good hurling season, and I suppose we're hoping for a really good finish to the football season. What's been a good football season by and large? I mean, you can argue the toss on the standard, but the standard is the standard. And I think there's been some amazing stories, incredible, scenes and moments, whether it's Derry winning a first Ulster since 98. Obviously, the Armagh Galway quarter-final, for right and wrong reasons, grabbed so much attention. We had a brilliant All-Ireland semi-final between Dublin and Kerry. Does it venture into the classic mode? Maybe it does. Again, people can argue the ifs and buts on that. And look, let's hope we get a final that befits the day and the tradition of the two counties on Sunday.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mention tradition, because Kev, there's this feeling out there. I kind of get it. I've seen it in a few places now. Maybe Darrell O'Shea's column. I think Barry John Keane did an interview. Did a few interviews. We did one with the RTÉ website, and I get this impression. And Éamonn can correct me in a minute if he wants, but I'd like your impression first, Kev, from the kind of the Connacht perspective. There's this idea that maybe Galway are Kerry light, or they're kind of, I can't believe it's not Kerry. They're the closest thing to Kerry that Kerry can see across their borders. There's a respect there, which to me, this level of respect kind of might verge on kind of condescension, perhaps. Somebody could argue. Did you think people in Connacht get that sense?
No, honestly, I don't. No. You're putting words into my mouth there, Mikey.
No, I was asking you a question. No, the words are from my mouth.
No, not condescension. No, absolutely not. No. It's one of the things I've often said. I'm sure on this podcast, it's one of the things I really admire Kerry for in their preparation for. I was going to say big games, but nearly all championship games that they give a great respect to the opposition. Now they still expect to go out
and then go out and give them a hiding.
And then go out and pummel them. But no, the point I'm saying is, and I said this in the column this week. In my lifetime, of admiring them and watching them, I can think of Clare, in '92, Cork 2020, and there was one. I don't know, were you on that team, Eamonn, the one where Meath walloped you? Were you on that? Sorry if you are. Sorry for bringing it up.
Can't remember, Kevin.
You raised
remember the black yolks they had Men in Black that they could just erase their memory.
You're breaking up there, Kevin. You're breaking up.
No, I was centre back that day. Yeah.
So the they would be the three games that I just remember where they must have walked in with their eyes on a different prize. You'd imagine. I wasn't there. I don't know. But in championship games, Kerry don't not show up. So that's a marvelous testament to them that they, you just don't see the no-shows very, very often over a long period of time. Galway are proper royalty in terms of the history of the game. Like they have 9 All-Irelands, Mikey.
9,
yeah. Like I was actually looking, like Mikey, I was actually and Kevin, I was actually looking at it there last night. I mean, they are two veritable blue bloods of Gaelic football. I mean, they both have very storied histories and past glories. I mean, you've hugely successful colleges teams at Hogan Cup level, whether it's Jarlath's or Tuam or the Sem in Killarney, even right up to Eamonn's current place of employment, actually in Public School Corcaguina. That influence carries on through to third level. Many Kerry players in a whole host of Sigerson victories for UCC. And even this year we saw NUIG winning a 23rd title to go level on the Roll of Honour with the Skull and Crossbones. And Eamonn, I think you might have been on a UCC team that actually won a county championship in Cork. And you beat Nemo in that final, if I'm not mistaken. Then you look at
Rory, we're dragging up all the old stuff.
Yeah. Eamonn's CV is being well thumbed this morning.
But even if you look at club successes, I mean, our Corofin, the greatest single club side that's ever existed, give me a better one. Throw in Caltra, Salthill, Knocknacarra. Then on the Kerry side, Dr. Croke, Sossin Stacks. And then you've Sunday's teams with bagfuls of minor medals on the Kerry side, a Galway side with Cormac Walsh from the 2013 under 21 side, Matty Tierney and Patrick Kelly from their most recent vintage 2 years ago. So it's dripping with history, tradition and football folklore on both sides. A fascinating final for the neutrals and one that should capture people's imagination given the two traditional football and philosophies in both counties. But I'm not entirely sure if we'll see the kind of open attack in football we would ordinarily expect from the two of them on Sunday coming, certainly in the opening stages anyway, but one to say nonetheless.
As we all know, like these games take on a life of their own, and the champion team, the winning team, eventually figure out what's on offer in this game, and they adapt to the circumstances. The idea that this is going to be free flowing from the first ball in just because there happens to be 10, 12 elite standard footballers out on the field and it's all going to be lovely attack and stuff is, well, it's preposterous. It's not going to happen. People will cut their cloth accordingly. You can be sure of that, and especially Galway in the opening quarter will be very vigilant, I imagine, in protecting their own goal area until they get a foot, because none of them have ever played in an All-Ireland final, isn't that right? Of course.
None of the Galway players, no.
So, whereas Kerry have a handful plus, perhaps, that have that experience, and that is a big experience. I mean, I was a one-time All-Ireland finalist, and it takes you all your, just to get yourself right and keep yourself in the game and understand what's going on around you and try and park the occasion. Like that is all out there. It's noise, and it is. And unless you're reasonably cool-headed and calm, they can get away from you very easily. So there's those elements are in, and that's why I think Galway will double down early on. And just see what has the game got to offer, Mikey.
Yeah, but I agree with that, and I it's something you hear referenced a lot. And Eamonn, it'd be interested to know, did the first differ from the second All-Ireland? Because to me, this factor of All-Ireland experience to someone who hasn't experienced one, it's kind of an irrelevance. Obviously it is. They're going to say, everyone on that Galway team will say, I'm just going to go out and play my game. It doesn't matter. And some of them obviously will be able to succeed in that aim, and I would imagine, and some of them might fail horribly. But for them, it can't be a factor building up to the game, because every one of them will say, as Rory just said, the amount of big games they played in, they say, it's just another game. I'll treat it as another game. And then I suppose we won't know until the rubber hits the road, will we?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Mikey. And look, if you're lucky enough to win the first one you're in, you learn a lot while winning. And oftentimes, you know, the old saying of having to lose one to win one is a factor as well. My first one was 2000 against Galway. We drew the first day out. Even from the first day to the second day to the replay, you'd learn an awful lot. All-Ireland final day is different. It's different from the point of view of the buzz going into the ground, the size of the crowds, the Garda helicopter flying overhead,
meeting the president, you know,
all the formalities beforehand, the changes, your warm-up, the build-up to the game. You know, in Kerry especially, you know, you can go the whole way to an All-Ireland final and people are drifting along, the supporters are drifting along. There's no huge talk about it, but once you get to an All-Ireland final, then it takes over the county. So there is a lot to be said for having been there, done that. But of course, in Galway's situation, they're not going to say, oh lads, sure, we have to lose one to win one. They're just going to be saying it is another big game. There are the formalities. Cian O'Neill will be a help in that he has been through that, you know, in the recent past. I know obviously Padraig Joyce and Dively and them would have been there back in the day themselves, but that's a long time ago to be drawing on that memory, whereas Cian was in an All-Ireland final in 2015. So, you know, he will have that bit of background in terms of the formalities around the occasion. But at the end of the day, when the ball is thrown up, it is just another game. And it is 2 goalposts at either end and the white lines and a referee and everything else that goes with the normal game. It's more the build-up and the before the game that is slightly different. And you just want to make sure that valuable mental and physical energy aren't burned in that. You want to be just at your absolute peak once the ball's thrown in.
Yeah, and you just hope none of the Kerry lads bring their hurls out onto the pitch for the walkabout, because they'll get in trouble for that as well, of course.
They're not allowed to bring footballs either.
Yeah, I was about to say, in fairness to Don Logue, he was absolutely on the money with that point. Like, it is, I remember, Kevin, you were probably the same. And look, the lads in Crow Park, they have a job to do, and I get that. I've had words with the groundsmen at times when we've gone up to big games, particularly when you're the first game. You go out, you're walking, there's no one in the stadium except the team, and they're saying, no lads, you can't walk onto the pitch now because you're actually allocated a time there in half an hour's time. And I used to be saying, listen lads, we're going to be inside in the dressing room in half an hour's time getting ready. We're not going to be coming out then, but we're going to walk out onto the pitch now. No, there's a time. Well, we used just still walk out. I used to say to the lads, look lads, we're going out. We're walking out onto the pitch. That's it. The crowds that are coming in today are here to see the players. They're not here to see me. They're not here to see you. They're not here to admire how beautiful the pitch is. They're here to see the players. So it is one of those, you know, one of those ones that needs to be. I mean, when you look at the soccer teams, you take the Champions League final, they have training sessions on the pitch the night before. Rugby, they have captain's run the day before and all this stuff. But then in football and hurling, we're not allowed to walk on the pitch an hour before the game.
If you're the curtain raiser, that's always the big trouble, because not only do you feel like you're a second-class citizen, you're over in the Cusick dressing rooms. And I certainly recall a Super 8 game where we were the curtain raiser. And we came out and like that, Éamonn, oh Jesus, if you put your foot over the white line, it'd be amputated. But the best he could offer us to that on the far side was if we wanted to walk around the pitch outside, go down around the back of the canal end and over across the Hogan and back. I think lads went 5 or 6 yards left to right and went back into the dressing room.
You had an Islamic prayer service there a couple of weeks ago where they were all out in the pitch praying to Allah. You had a fella with a hurley and a football can't walk out onto it. Like, I mean,
it's just one of those ones that needs to be tweaked, all right? Because like for players to go out and just have the little puck around or have a little tip around with the football, it's just a settler. And it's getting you into the the reason that you're there and everything else, particularly in an All-Ireland final day. And, you know, it's not going to harm the pitch. You're not going to have fellas.
And what are you saving it for? What are you saving it for at this time? You know, like it's going to be closed now for the next however many
after
months.
the camogie in the women's football finals. Yeah. Anyway, Kerry and Galway footballers, they're also graceful and skillful. Sure, they're not going to. They wouldn't be kicking up any divots anyway. Like they'd just be gliding across the ground. Well, okay, so let's get into it then. You've kind of alluded to it there, Kevin. I suppose the thinking is the first 10-15 minutes of this match, even though it's Kerry they're playing and not Derry. The match could follow kind of similar lines to Galway and Derry's semi-final, and that Galway they'll sit in, they'll hope to frustrate Kerry the way they did Derry. I think Derry got three early points, but that was it, and then they started to bash their head off a wall. And if Galway can do that and start drawing out the Kerry defence, etc., they'll consider that a pretty successful start to the game.
Yeah, I think so. And my reasoning, and it may well work on both sides. My reasoning is that defensively, I don't see either team changing anything. So, you know, Tadhg Morley will do what he's been doing rather well too, it has to be said. And Dylan McHugh and Kieran Malloy will continue doing what they've been doing. Here's the rub, Mikey. Both teams are now coming up against elite foot passers, something they won't have visited upon them previously, or didn't have visited upon them previously. In that the Malloy McHugh role, as I see it, is essentially making contact with the ball carrier if he comes into your area, and if not, sagging back and filling the passing lane, which is all good until you're faced with, we'll say, David Moran, Shawnee O'Shea, Paddy Clifford, that standard of foot passer, who can actually bypass you in that lane. They would be that good. And obviously, if David Clifford or Paul Ganey, who I expect to be selected, if they find themselves out in the half line, absolutely the same. So they can take out a sweeper or a guy that's filling a passing lane very, very well. They won't have come up against this anywhere in the championship to date, Mikey, I would argue. And likewise on the other side, Paul Conroy is an excellent foot passer. Shane Walsh is an outstanding foot passer. John Daly is a really good foot passer. These are the great skills you want to bring to Croke Park on All-Ireland final day, because they'll unlock things. So Tadhg Morley will be minding home very carefully, and he needs to get his positioning sense spot on. He wouldn't want to be falling asleep or losing focus, because they would, you know, as I say, thread the needle very quickly, and you're out of the game. One pass will take you out of that role. So I see them for that reason, you know, saying goals. Well, you know, Kerry's mantra all year has been no goals, and it's been outstanding. The only time they've been beaten was with maybe goal of the year, I guess. Galway will be likewise. I'm sure of that, because there is the potential on the inside line. Ganey comes up with big stuff on All-Ireland final day. He's a temperament player. He has that. He's a street player with a good temperament, and he'll be wanting to put the semi-final behind him. And obviously David Clifford is in there too, who's highly, highly dangerous. And they won't pass up goal opportunities at that level, as Comer won't either. You won't see them fisting the ball over now on a 1-on-1 with the keeper or that thing. Or if there's a 2-on-1 and they sniff it around the 20 metre, they'll develop it right in and take out the goalie if they can. That's the level of player you're at. So that's fantastic to be looking forward to that. But I think the caveat is, the asterisk is that the first 15-20 minutes, I think, will be cagey.
Yeah, without a doubt. Éamonn, Galway had got a lot of joy, I suppose, as the match stretched out, by kind of keeping Derry honest and kind of doing what most teams don't do against Derry, and keeping 2 or 3 forwards up. Do you think they'll have to do the same against Kerry? Obviously, the Tadhg Morley role is there, and it's been pivotal. They're not going to assign a player to mark Tadhg Morley, because that would mean they'd basically be leaving themselves with no cover at the back themselves. But could you see them kind of keep, after this initial kind of shadow boxing stage, shall we see, can you see them being that brave against Kerry and maybe trying to keep 2 or 3 up and trying to stretch Kerry?
I think it'll vary throughout the game, Mikey. I think at stages they'll try to do that they'll try to keep Damien Comer as far forward as they can, Rob Finnerty, Shane Welch, kind of that triumvirate that they'll be rotating. They'll try and keep one of them close to goals, maybe one of them halfway between. Now, all of them, I imagine Rob Finnerty will be the fella they'll try to keep closest to goal the whole time, because he wouldn't have the same engine or the same defensive instincts as Damien Comer has in particular, but Shane Welch has as well. And when they're looking for that kind of quick transition to break out of their defensive shell, you know, they got a couple of scores against Roscommon where both of them were back and they were part of that counter-attack, and they can both move. Similarly, against Mayo, Damien Comer was stuck in a couple of, you know, where he got sucked very deep, got turnovers and drove forward as well. So he's good at that as well. I don't expect them now to push someone up onto Tadhg Morley. I imagine what will happen is Kerry will match Tadhg Morley up with Johnny Heaney, and Johnny Heaney will, you know, play quite defensive, especially early on, and it'll allow Tadhg to play his role in front of Jason Foley and Damien Comer as much as he can. But I agree 100% with Kevin. I'd say it'll be cagey and nervy early on, and both, you know, Galway have started slowly in the last two games, and you know, they can't do that against Kerry. I played in All-Ireland finals myself where we got to start, and you know, it's hard for the opposition to get back into it then.
It's
so
half the battle, isn't it?
It's half the battle. Yeah. And when with the way the Kerry are playing in particular, that if they get a start and that they're defensively solid and they're not looking like giving up goal chances, it's very hard to claw it back. So Galway will be conscious of that. You know, against Armagh, they clawed it back well in the second quarter, similarly against Derry, but they'll realise that with the firepower Kerry have, if they give them that kind of a head start, it can be hard to get it back. So they will be defensive, as will Kerry, and they'll feel their way into the game. And I think even though it won't be as flowing early on, it'll still be it'll be interesting, and it'll be enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. Rory,
Mikey, I should have mentioned also in that passing department, Matthew Tierney with a lovely left foot as well, for that 30-meter pass that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Were you going to use the word intriguing there, Éamonn? I
had to go into the thesaurus in my mind, Rory.
That just won't come, you know.
I could picture a man below and in Temple
Low. Intriguing.
Yeah, no. Guys, you're getting to know me too well, Rory.
Rory, the Kerry defence, I think it's 3 goals in league and championship so far this year, and as mentioned, Costello's goal shouldn't have been a goal. It was a ludicrous shot. So the Kerry defence,
one was a penalty, I think.
Yeah. We had Pat on schooling us here now at the end of the league. I think I may have made the mistake of saying they conceded 2 goals and it was 1, and Pat.
Darren McCurry got a great goal in the league game in Killarney as well.
Yeah.
Barry Canavan put in a diagonal ball, but
the other one was a penalty. So there's been 2 goals from play, which was the point Pat made quite vociferously to me one day. So Rory, the Kerry defence has been fantastic, but in my maroon T-shirt, I will make the argument that I don't think they've come up against a goal-seeking attack, even Dublin's, as potent as this Galway one, the form they've been in this year.
Probably not, but you could equally flip it on its head then and say, I'm not entirely sure if Galway have come up against a Kerry forward line, or a forward line with the sort of depth and quality that Kerry have, and that's probably what makes...
That's why they're both in the All-Ireland final, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's probably what makes it so intriguing. No, like, I think oftentimes, you know, reading previews and listening to previews, and again, the 2 lads have been managers, so they'd be in a much better position to appraise this. Much can be made of matchups and who's going to mark who, and I do think it's a significant thing, obviously, but I'm not so sure with the way Gaelic football has evolved if it's as much of an issue anymore. With the sort of head defense that now takes place. Like what interested me last night was I watched the Kerry Tyrone game from last year, just for curiosity, and like it wasn't like they had obviously a man marker on Clifford, but at no stage was it 1v1 in the way that Mick Fitzsimons was landed with the job from the Dublin perspective. And I think that was probably one of the most unusual aspects of the semi-final, was that they effectively landed Fitzy with the job of a 1v1, which is a very difficult thing to do for any player, especially a lad who's, the wrong side of 30. And look, he, as Éamonn said, Clifford did tire in the second half. I think Clifford is potentially carrying a wee bit of a knock, and maybe has been all year long. He doesn't look as fit as I've seen him in the past, but he'll still get on a heap of ball. And equally at the other end, people will maybe have their worries about Jason Foley on Comer, but Jason Foley's not going to be picking up Comer on his own. He just won't. I mean, he there's no way. There is no way.
He won't follow him deep into.
Yeah,
and
what you're definitely not going to see, Kevin, is a 60-yard raker into Comer in a 1v1 on Jason Foley, where Comer can kick it into an empty net. I mean, that is just not going to happen. So look, I think that part of it maybe is slightly overstated. I think what's probably more, I suppose, worrying, and look, it's a conversation for another day, is the way Gaelic football has evolved, really. And I think, look, it's paint by numbers. It's, it's big zonal defenses now. And it's just about, I suppose, patience, concentration, who's got maybe the greater mental fortitude to stick the course, even if things aren't going your way. And I think from a Kerry perspective, they'll be happy enough to take on that challenge.
Yeah, I think I agree. Some games can be stultifying, especially when you get two teams that are playing in the same way. But Kevin, I would say most sports are. American football is, here's our defensive system. We think we know how you're going to play, and we're going to try and stop you. That's most ball sports are, to an extent, is trying to implement. Yeah. So
well, soccer probably would have gone. The reality is, soccer. We would be now watching soccer in the same way as we watch Gaelic football, with everybody basically inside, 11 players camped in their own box to avert the possibility of a goal hanger. But what did they do in soccer? Is they brought in the offside rule, so they gave defenses another option from which to defend. You don't have that in GAA. So by and large, coaches are still adopting the McGuinness mantra, which is paint by numbers.
You can still park the bus in a Premiership game.
Yeah.
And come out the right side of a 0-0 or a 1-0.
Yeah. I think what my point, Kevin, is that that's what the game is. It is trying to beat what's in front of you. And I don't think either of these teams are going to do that. I think Galway will certainly do it for stages and at the start, as we said. But it is, as Rory says, it's down to which team figures out the other one on the hoof, which is not down to the managers mostly. I think you both agree at this stage. Once the teams go out on the pitch on Sunday, it's about the players probably figuring things out to themselves. So it's about problem solving, and as Rory said, to an extent, mental fortitude, and then you'd hope an individual piece of brilliance or two, which will have us all talking about it for a week or two afterwards.
You see, you've actually touched on it exactly. You called it problem solving, okay, on the hoof. I as a manager, as a coach, I'd call it decision making. First cousins, identical twins, same thing. What happens? My sense of what happens at this level of the game, and I'm watching all the finals for years and years, is that what you're going to see when the problem is posed in front of Galway or Kerry that they have to break down. The difficulty of answering that All-Ireland question is heightened by the fact that the skills of the players is dramatically improved from the year. Like, you now have the two best teams in Ireland coming together at a moment. That's what the All-Ireland generally is, in top form, peak performance. And what you won't see is stupid turnovers. You'll only see turnovers as a function of outstanding pressure and stress put on the ball carrier, or great tracking, or outstanding tackling with the near hand, or whatever. And then when that happens, you see the real skills in the transition. And this is something we're going to see on Sunday, that the ball will be protected. There was a period in the game in the semi-final, like you, Rory, I was doing my homework yesterday, and to see the skill levels in ball retention You know, I think the Dubs did nearly a 2-minute one, Kerry not far behind them, and going down tight channels and a little bit of evasion skill, and everybody has two hands. And the big thing is when they're passing the ball at pace, they're not killing the stride pattern. They're putting it right in front of you, so they're moving onto it, and they're moving the chance up now to the opposition box in 3-4 seconds. That's how good these teams are. But they will figure a way, and the team that will win it will be the best decision makers. You know, the chances will present. We know the game will open up at some stage, and therefore chances will present either as a function of pressure or as a function of tiredness and
fatigue,
and the game and fatigue and the game opening up. And then it's the decision that the problems are posed, as you're saying. Who can solve them the best? Well, the best decision makers will solve them the best, and that's what I'm really looking forward to, because both teams have top forward lines. You know, they're very, very highly skilled players. Some of the most skilled players in the history of the game, I'd say, in Clifford and Walsh in particular. But don't walk away from the skills that I think Gainey shows, that Paddy Clifford shows, that I think Matthew Tierney has the potential to show. So that's the bit I'm really looking forward to. The problem solving, like who sees the 3-1 but botches it? You know, who doesn't see the 3-1 at all and kicks it over the bar, and you lose by a point when it was actually a goal chance if you'd only given, you know, we say if you want to score, pass the ball and just fill a lane after that, and it'll probably just fall back into you when they're taking out the keeper. But you have to have that level of ruthlessness to say, this is the goal chance that's going to win the All-Ireland, or put us in a position to win the All-Ireland, and then go after it. And I think both sets of forwards actually will display that ambition anyway, not final execution.
Rory alluded to it, Éamonn, that there's you know, the idea that David Clifford has a knock. He probably hasn't been at his
6 points in the semi-final.
I know,
but I do.
Yeah,
but I think, like Kevin, I'm sorry, no, I'm not. That's not me being critical of Clifford. Obviously not. It just looks a little off what I would, you know, ordinarily see from him.
Are admittedly ridiculously high standards.
Yeah, exactly.
But
doesn't seem to be running with the same fluency.
Yeah, but we haven't heard.
I don't honestly now, Rory. I don't see that, honestly.
Okay.
Éamonn, we haven't heard any rumours that he's in a wheelchair or he's had to have a leg amputated or anything like that.
That's
so
Saturday night.
There's no time for rumours. That's how bad the calendar is, Éamonn. There isn't even time for Kerry rumours.
So we're assuming he's fitting well, Éamonn, because we haven't heard he's had to rush to a lab in Switzerland to have a genetically modified foot reattached or anything like that. So.
No, I'd say he's fine. I'd say probably, Rory, what you were seeing possibly was he did miss a bit of training, and maybe that real match fitness that comes from just playing games. Maybe there was a small bit of that, particularly in the Mayo game, and he got the knock early in that and might have been minding himself a bit. But that Dublin game and getting through the full Dublin game and the pace and everything of that game, it'll have brought all of them on, but it will have got him on. But no, he's fine, Mike. I just think he'll have to be patient on Sunday. I think it's going to be a different type of a game for him. You know, Rory mentioned it already, the 1-on-1 situation with Mick Fitzsimons, and the way that the Dubs back their men to do the job, and then they try to get the +1 back to help. That's always been the way they've done it. I think two things from Dublin is that when they were at their peak, the pressure that they got on out the field was incredible. The Flynns, the Connollys, the Kilkennys, Dean Rock, you know, Fenton, all of them, any of the players that were operating in that middle third of the field, it was very hard to get your head up and get a kick ball inside. And then when the ball was put inside, you know, you had Johnny Cooper, you had Philly McMahon, you had Fitzsimons at their peak, and they were getting out contesting everything. So they were a very hard team to play against, but I don't think the same pressure is on out the field now. And obviously the lads inside have gone the wrong side of 30, some of them. But for David, for Sunday, there's going to be a lot of traffic. There's going to be a lot of trying to push him out towards the sideline, get him on ball out there. You know, when he gets the ball, there'll be players doubling up on him. And early on, you know, he might just have to be patient. In 2014, James O'Donoghue played a kind of a decoy role for us. He played deeper than he'd played all year. because we knew the attention that he was going to get from the Donegal lads, and we also knew the capabilities of Paul Ganey, and that if he got a bit of freedom inside, which he did, and which happened early on, he got an early goal, which was great for us that day, particularly for a lot of the young players playing in the first game. So, again, the next day it might be the likes of Paul that might get a bit of freedom because of the level of attention that will be going towards David and Shawnee Shea as well. But David will have to be patient on Sunday, and then as the game goes on, it will open up a bit for him, and then he has the potential to really leave a mark on a final.
Yeah.
If I just throw in on the Clifford debate there with Rory and Éamonn, Mikey, that bear in mind in the second half, he and I take the point Éamonn is making about the missing the training and the lack of sharp. Like he floated 2 shots, if memory serves me, just to the left and wide. That would put him up at 8 points if he was at his level, his usual level. And I don't think we'd be getting too worried about him. But he'd probably be taken up, I expect, by Sean Kelly. Is that the way you're thinking?
You'd imagine so, wouldn't you?
Imagine so. Now Kelly is a fine player, fellas. He is superb athleticism, and he's the captain of the team. He takes his responsibilities and the taskings he'll be given very, very seriously.
And he marked him in the Sigerson final as well, Kevin.
Yes,
so he has the bit
not
of
too bad in it. Yeah.
He has the experience of marking him before. So there's a word in Galway that they're expecting Liam Silk to pick up David Clifford, but I'm the same as you. I'd expect Sean Kelly to be on it.
I think Silk will go after Ganey, and Glenn will take the Paddy or whoever's left over for that. And here's the main point I wanted to make is that. And it hasn't happened yet because he's gifted, because he's so gifted. But I know he has a right foot, but he is magical and predominantly left. And surely on the man marker, certainly in the act of shooting, the trying to get into his eye line, trying to get across on that left foot, that Sean Kelly will, I absolutely guarantee, fellas, will have thought this through to the nth. And he will go and try and put almighty pressure on his Kittob. And like, never mind trying to drive him out, Éamonn, they will try to drive him right as much as they can, because he's not at 100% on the right. He's only at about 90. But that will be a key look for them. And that's it's grand here to be talking, or grand for Pádraig Joyce and Cian O'Neill to be talking in a meeting room about that, to go out and do it but he will have help out defence, and you will see people diving close across his left if he gets into striking, and you'll see the help out defence going in after him, and you can go hard on those shots for the first 2 or 3 blocks and just give him the breeze of you coming across, and you say, Jesus, where did that come from? No matter how good you are, if you're being double teamed.
We'll see a few nice dummies so early on, Kevin.
I think we will see some nice dummies. Yeah.
Well, and of course he has those two.
When lads go into cricket when they're going into field, like right in front of the batter, and they get to wear the helmet. I think if you're trying to block David Clifford's left foot, you should be allowed to put on a helmet as well, because
you should be allowed to have a bat.
like he can do absolutely everything. I mean, he's so special. And one of the things that I think maybe, look, obviously his scoring rate is phenomenal, but he's unbelievably hard to stop in possession as well when he actually gets the ball and he starts to run with it. And I wouldn't be surprised, certainly for the first 10 or 15 minutes while that feeling out process unfolds, if they just drift him out to the wing, or maybe bring him out to the 40, just get him on a little bit of ball and push him out, and just give him a small.
He is a distance shooter as well, isn't
he? Well, like if he gets the ball into his hand, Kevin, and when he starts a gallop, it's a foul. Basically, it's the only way you're going to stop him, really. And then sure, Sean O'Shea steps up and bang over the bar. And the other thing that I think would not surprise me at all, there's debate about whether David Moran will start. David Moran will start.
What will start?
Well, yeah. I heard some people say David Moran will start, right? But one thing you can be absolutely given as a racing certainty, Kerry are going to lamp 1 or 2 into that square. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw David Moran just drift into the edge of the square, look, he's not going to play full forward.
He's done it before, drifting in.
And he just David Moran just drifts in, and they'll say they might have one or two set plays where they'll just like, lads, diagonal ball. There's a keeper in there who's got a wobble in him. Let's just test him once or twice in that first half and see how he gets on, and then wait for David to get, like, I would not be surprised, because Kerry will have a few tricks up their sleeve as well. You've got a very, very wily manager, obviously on both sides. But, you know, like Jack, you know, will be a very smart fella, and that is a potential weakness in Galway.
Interesting. And not the kickouts, Éamonn. I was looking at some stats this morning. I don't tend to delve into them too much, but I was looking at them. Kerry are close to 100% on kickouts, because, you know, they seem to be able to get them away quick and short for the most part. Galway are quite used to having to battle a bit more, and like their percentages on kickouts could be ranging between the 60s and the 80s%. So to the stupid like me, it would seem Galway should push up, make this a battle, because they're used to living off not scraps, but, you know, less than 100% possession on their own kickouts. Whereas, you know, why not make Kerry uncomfortable and give Kerry something they haven't had to do yet?
Yeah, I think, look, as always, the kickouts are going to be huge, Mikey. I think Kerry's approach to Conor Gleeson, I'm going to be interested in it early on, because, look, basically Conor Gleeson is most comfortable going long, and he has a big boot, and Galway plan for it. They have one that they kick out to Conroy, and they get a bit of an overload. Tierney helps them out. They get the bodies around the brakes. That's one of them. And even though they're just at over 50%, they're happy to do that. And if they lose it long. They have another one that they like to go straight down the middle to Damien Comer, high, or sometimes a kind of a low scud to him. And then they do go with the short ones as well, but it's only if it's really obvious that they'll chip out the short one. Another one they have is they come in for the bunch, and rather than the backs being the target, it's actually Johnny Heaney or Shane Welch that comes down from the 12 side down into that space, and they get kind of a chip out there. So Kerry have a press that they can do. They can do the aggressive press, the 4-4-4 or 5-3-4. And I don't think they should do it on Sunday from the point of view that Conor Gleeson wants to go along. I think they need the bodies further out the field. So I think they just need to tag the Galway backs, take away that pocket at 7 that Galway like to hit, and then be out under the long one. From Galway at the other side, then, yeah, that's going to be a test of their mettle. Like against Derry in the second half, they pushed 5 into the full forward line to take away. Oren Lynch got away a couple of chips in the first half, and they pushed 5 up, which was brave, and they backed themselves out in the middle of the field. But I'm not sure if they'll do that against Kerry, because obviously if they do that, Kerry go along and win it, they're caught with their pants down at the back then, and they're really open. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Kerry will go man and man and try to force them out long and try to go after it in the middle of the field, which Conor Gleeson will be happy doing anyway. Galway, I'll be interested to see how aggressively they press Kerry. And like you said, Kerry have got a lot of short ones away, and Rianna Beagliach, we mentioned it before, was courageous at the end of the game. But with the Kerry backs, something with them.
Shane Ryan was very courageous at the end too.
And Shane Ryan, in fairness to him, compliments Shane Ryan as well. He was courageous. But like the Kerry backs have ferocious pace. Jason Foley, Tom Sullivan, Brian Begley, Gavin White, if he's fit, they're not quick. They're ultra quick. Graham O'Sullivan is quick. Tyg Morley is quick as well, even though
Paul Murphy's not slow if he has to come in either.
Exactly.
Is he?
Paul Murphy's quick if he's to come in. But the 4 lads, in terms of Tom, Jason, Brian, and Gavin, they're rapid. So trying to contain them in a bunch and break is hard, because they're going to get the bit of separation to get away for the chip, and Shane Ryan is good at that. So you question then, should they just be in position and give up that short one? So I don't know, basically, Mike, is what I'm saying, but I'll be interested. I'll be watching both sides with interest from an early stage.
You've touched on it, and maybe Mikey, it's your next question. But the bench and people coming off the bench. I was doing a piece for the Pen Picks on Saturday, and just started studying the bench impacts. of the respective teams. And at a glance, you would say, gee, that Galway bench looks very light. But then you think back to Kerry back in the Munster Championship, when the three lads that swung it against Cork essentially were David Moran, Paul Murphy and Paul Ganey. When the cavalry arrived around the 50th minute, they're now essentially starters as I read it for Sunday. So the bench has been diluted further. But the Galway one is particularly stark. If you go to the semi-final, lads, Finian O'Lee came on, I think, in the 61st. And then the next three subs came on like the 68th, 69th, 73rd minute. And nobody's contributing on the scoreboard at all, essentially.
I am surprised we haven't seen more of Tom O'Culhan. I was expecting to see a little bit more from him. But anyway, sorry, Kev.
I just have it in front of me. He didn't make the 26, even in the semi-final. Is that right? Will I just check that?
Yeah,
no,
that was the first game. He wasn't. He had been number 26 for the previous all of the previous games, but whether it was an injury or something,
he was nearly their big star when they won the under-20 title a couple of years ago.
Yeah. But now we're used to having this debate around All-Ireland final time. You know, the 20 minutes to go, the stronger bench. Like look back to last year. Carl McShane, Dara Canavan coming in at a critical time and just pushing the dial another little bit and up the temperature, and Mayo can't cope with it, and two big plays, a goal and the point, and next thing you're facing for home, aren't you? So this is a critical aspect of the final, Mikey. The relative strengths of the bench, and it would look, when you see Tony Brosnan, the two Spillans, well, Paul Murphy we think will start, Crowley, Savage,
Darren Moynihan,
like, you know, no, I think Gavin White, I don't want to push Éamonn now into giving away state secrets, but my deep throats down in Tralee are telling me he's a goner, which is awful pity for the poor lad. It's shocking. It's one of the terrible things about these big days is fellas that miss them through injury.
Well, Jack O'Connor said he's in. Didn't he say he's in a race against Simon? He's touching goals. So that means Éamonn, he's surely fit.
That's a race he ain't going to win. I'm hearing.
It depends now, Kevin. Your deep throat was in Tralee, so in Tralee he's ruled out. In my deep throat is in Killarney. In Killarney he's in. So it's the usual thing from his own personal perspective and nothing to do with the team. He's a great guy, and he's an absolute ultimate pro in everything he does. So for his own sake, I hope he's fit and he makes it. Obviously from the team's point of view as well, you hope he's there, because against that kind of a set defense, that rapid pace that he has is an important weapon. But no, you don't. Again, it's usual down here. It depends on who you talk to. One person says no, he's definitely back. He is fine, and then the next person.
I saw him.
I saw him. Yeah, the next person then is no, he's out. So
in the local hospital. Yeah.
So
what do you do, Conor Gleeson? We mentioned him already from the kick-out point of view. Éamonn, to Kerry, you know, the home of the Twin Towers. How tempting is it here now to kind of do what Derry didn't do, you know, which we all were surprised by.
Look, absolutely, and that's part of the Kerry DNA anyway, Mikey. And I think, look, Kevin mentioned it already. The decision-making thing, when that's on, they'll absolutely test his pulse and their pulse in there, and they'll put. I mean, in the first half against Dublin, they put two high balls in.
I'm sorry, Éamonn. Sorry to cut across you. Again, you tell me better, but I think the key is to do it early. That guy is going to be nervous. Like, he is going to be a bag of nerves. This is his first All-Ireland final. It's a big day. So would you be saying, like, let's test him early?
Oh, I think so. I think what they'll do, Rory, is that, like, let's say picture a Kerry kick-out or a Galway kick-out, the Kerry win it, and Galway are a small bit exposed at the back and the set defence isn't in place. That's the time then to put it in. That's where the decision-making comes in. You're putting it into 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 situation. You don't want to be kicking it in with 2 or 3 extra Galway backs back there, and they break it out and they're breaking out at pace.
Heads up. You have to have the head up and see what's going on.
Yeah, and it's giving the crowd energy. It's giving the team energy. Like Kerry in the 2019 replay. I don't know if you remember. that, like, the first half of that game was a brilliant half of football. It was up and down the field, and there was both sides kicked great scores. But Kerry actually put a lot of high ball in early, and it didn't work at all.
Because it was 10-all at half time, I think, wasn't it? It was,
it was being broken out, and it actually was giving the Dubs. It was giving the Dubs energy rather than giving Kerry energy. So I think it's one that'll absolutely be done. Like against Dublin the first half of the last day, put in the first high ball, the goal came off it, put in another high ball, David Clifford caught it for a mark and put it over the bar. So they have it in the locker, but they won't want to overdo it either. It'll come down to that decision-making thing.
One of the keys as well, you mentioned the Twin Towers or any tower you're putting in, and that is obviously critically important, but of equal importance is the ability to give the ball, the skill to deliver. It's usually a slicer to the back post, and it has to hang. And the big problem with it is when you go short with it, because the Twin Tower is usually at the back post. So if you go short, the defender has the front position and just catches in his tummy, and you look like a clown, you know. And again, so the likes of Gainey, who is a lovely boot on him, Paddy Clifford, you know they have that skill.
And David Moran is very good at it, Kevin.
Well, we're expecting, of course, he might be the one that.
Well, he could be inside, but
he might drift in. But maybe, you know, O'Connor might drift in, that type of a player. But the key, of course, is having the skill to execute that diagonal. And so many teams think about it, but they don't execute the pass. And if the pass is anyway off, it's out. It can't happen.
And as you said, the short one is the killer. That's the worst one of the lot for the target man. But on the direct ball, Mikey, I expect Galway to try it as well. And again, in the right situations. Like,
but Comer is incredible in the air with that one-handed fist.
Absolutely. No. And like against Derry, they didn't do too much because they couldn't, because Derry had so many bodies back. But if you think back to early in the Armagh game, they put 3 or 4 long diagonal balls in, and Eamonn Rafferty actually did very well.
He did, They really tested him, didn't they?
Yeah,
he was caught great ball clean over his head.
He was attacking everything. The only one that they misjudged was the one that Comer got a punch on, and it went wide. So they were comfortable doing it as well against Armagh, not so much against Kerry. So I expect them at times in the game to test it out.
Would be brilliant, won't it? Like, that's 2 athletes now. Like Foley is a marvelous athlete, and Comer is explosive, as we know. So if they go to it, start tangoing around the edge of the square, and we'll say Morley gets left to his own devices further up. If it was a true one, that'll be great crack. That will be that will be worth watching.
Yeah, well, and who
crack, all right. Our hearts will be in our mouths.
You don't like that sort of crack, Kevin.
When it's someone else, Kevin. When it's someone else.
Rory, there's a little bit of intrigue on the sideline, I suppose, in the identity of the 2 coaches, and the fact that Paddy Talley, obviously now in McKerry, used to be with Galway, and of course Cian O'Neill now with Galway. He was in with Kerry. Éamonn well knows. I don't know. It's interesting, and it shows kind of the itinerant nature of inter-county coaching at the moment. But in terms of state secrets and stuff, I think the idea might be overplayed a bit, is it?
It is. I think that's all. I mean, each year brings new challenges, new people, new faces, new players, you know, new oppositions, new environments. Everything changes on a year-by-year basis. I think the figurehead is really the most important person in the whole setup, and I think he sets the tone. And one of the most noticeable aspects, I think, from both managers when we went down to film them was how calm. They were very, very cool, very, very calm. Both of them now, Jack and Pádraig, you know, like, and I think that bodes well. I think, you know, you'd expect that because obviously, you know, the figurehead sets the tone for the entire group, and if he's relaxed and he's calm and he's got a really measured and cool and collected way about him, I think that'll obviously effuse out into the rest of the panel and the rest of the players. And I think that's he's the person, like the coach. I think on the day, he can make some advice and he can do this and he can do that, but I think like a lot of the time, the backroom team, when teams win, you kind of look for narratives in a media perspective to hang things on. And people pick out the likes of the Tallies and Paul Kinnerks of this world, but ultimately it's the manager. Like he's the guy that sets the tone for the whole thing from top, from high up to low down.
I think, Rory, it's a story that's it's completely overrated.
Well, do you know what I thought was very interesting though, Kevin, was the fact that Sean Hurson, who was first All-Ireland final, by the way, is from the same club as Paddy Talley, right? And obviously that drifted into the Galway camp. And I was laughing, because people were saying, Jesus, that could be very biased now towards Kerry. And I was laughing at it, and I was like, there's about 50, like I'm the chair of a GA club. There's about 50 people that hate my guts, right? in my club. So there's no guarantee that Paddy and Sean Hurson are, they might
there wasn't Brendan Cawley and Cian O'Neill another angle. But to go back to that one about, it's an interesting story that they've been in different camps and cross county nature of modern coaching and so on. I'm sure you're the same, Eamonn, but my experience as manager wasn't that I hadn't enough information. I had too much freaking information and trying to filter it into what was
relevant.
Usable. But geez, there was more emails and match reports on opposition, and geez, if I stayed all week reading it, I wouldn't be in time to turn up for the match on Sunday. So I don't think it's a matter that one has more information than the other. Like with tape and statistics, and you see there. Johnny Bradley's report that we get at 6 o'clock on a Sunday. Sure, there's reading in it for a week if you went off on your bicycle. So the no, I don't see that as significant at all.
Yeah, no. On the managers, Éamonn, I think I'd say Jack O'Connor is only not calm when he's the Kerry manager and he's not in an All-Ireland final. This is his natural state. Of course, he's going to be calm. But on Pádraig Joyce, I think everybody's just impressed. Like, obviously, I don't think there's anybody who ever watched a game of Gaelic football who didn't adore Pádraig Joyce, the footballer. But since he's become Galway manager, the fact that he said it in one of his first press conferences, I'll be a failure if I don't win an All-Ireland. And just kind of the manner he's carried himself this year, I think he's one of these people, he's exactly how you thought he'd be if he became a manager when you watched him as a player.
Absolutely, yeah. And sure, look, he was a brilliant player. And he's a very successful businessman as well, and he's a very upfront person. He's one of those people you'd enjoy talking to because there's no beating around the bush. There's no kind of cloaks and daggers with him. It's straight out. He'll tell you what he's thinking, and he's a very upfront person. But it hasn't surprised me how he's got on. I remember at the start when he came in, all right, and that I felt rather than the thing about, that he was there to win an All-Ireland.
It was the style of football that they were playing was maybe a little naive.
I felt at the start, that was the only thing I said to myself. I was saying, I'm not convinced that, that you realise yet that as much as every manager, Kevin would be the same. Sure, I'd love when you're in charge. Okay, lads, off we go. It's gung-ho, all out attack. Let's go for it now from the start. Every ball, let's go. We're going, and that's it. Everyone had loved that, but at that level of the game, it's not the real world. And
there's a big difference between idealism and realism, Éamonn.
And there's nothing like a bit of realism to get rid of the idealism as well. Because
flushes it right out.
When the results start going against you, and they not only did a couple of results go against them, they had a couple of tankings, and they had a couple of ones like you lose a game by a couple of points, you say, okay, we need to tweak this, we need to, how can we improve this? You get a couple of tankings and you start saying, hold on, lads, we have to have a serious look at what's going on here. We have to really revise what we're at. So I think this year we've seen the real Pádraig Joyce from the point of view of he's absorbed the lessons, and it's a pragmatic Joyce that's getting the job done,
Yeah, absolutely.
When you talk about calmness, and that lovely sense of the build-up being under control, there's in the military, when you've done an overnight operation or you've been on lookout for the night, and he's been debriefed in the morning, and you're saying, what were things like last night, Mikey, over in the valley? with the Arab on one side and the Jew on the other side or whatever, and every calm but tense. The build up to these matches, of course, you're trying to project calmness. We all do, but don't for a second think that the butterflies aren't practicing Olympic somersaults at the same time, and you're trying to manage all that. And I suppose the good thing from a manager's point of view in these sort of weeks, by the way, I didn't manage in All-Ireland finals, but in big matches,
not yet, Kev, not yet,
is that you have so many things to occupy yourself and keep yourself busy, and worrying about every one of the 34 in the panel and the backroom team, and then really focusing in on the 15 starters as you get close once you dock in the hotel. That it looks after itself, I'm sure, Eamonn, doesn't it?
It does. Do you know what I think the most important thing for a manager the week of an All-Ireland, Kevin, particularly the latter half, is rest and actually having your energy right, having your sleep right. Not, you said it there, you could be looking at stats and reports, and you could look at one more video, and you could be doing that up until 3 o'clock in the day, the All-Ireland. There's always something else to be thought of, but I think that it's important you get to a point. For me, it was the Thursday night beforehand. We got together as a group. That was our final thing until we travelled on the Saturday, and then you just cut it. And it was about making sure that when you met the group on Saturday, you were in good form, the energy was high, you were ready to go, because like for the game on the Sunday, you need to be relaxed and rested yourself so that you can react on the line. Whereas if your head is full of stuff, it's very hard to have that kind of detachment that you need to just look at what's in front of you, rather than saying, I expected it to go this way, or I expected it to go that way, or why isn't this working? We practiced that. You're just saying, no, this now is what's in front of me, and we have to react to this. So I think that's a huge part. Jack will definitely have that right, because he's so experienced at having been in finals for Padraig. I imagine as well, it's something that, you know, he'll be trying to get right: rest, high energy, and in good form then when you meet the group on the Saturday, so that they're not saying, Jesus, your man's like a bear. Stay away from your man anyway.
Yeah, sure. He's there listening to Bjork or Sigur Rós on his AirPods anyway. He's nice and relaxed. He's
listening to the likes of us Egypts on the chat.
Oh God, I hope not. Okay, speaking of us Egypts, I suppose we better get around to doing predictions. But Kev, I'm going to come to you last, because cut me and I bleed maroon, and you got two of the staunchest Kerry supporters around here, so I know which way those predictions are going, so I'll come to you last.
Who the staunch Kerry supporters?
Well, you've been backing them since day one, is what I mean. You've been predicting they're going to win the All-Ireland all year.
I have to go back to Cork after Sunday, Mikey. You have to be careful about saying stuff like that.
Sure. Are not all of Cork rowing in behind us for the weekend? All of Munster sticking together, Rory.
The green and gold bunting is out down in Union Hall in Skibbereen.
Exactly up here in the middle.
All right, no, Rory, what I meant is you have been backing them in terms of as a astute Gaelic Games journalist all year, and I'm guessing you haven't changed your mind since the semi-final.
No, and I think, look, you know your history or be doomed to repeat it. Isn't that an old saying? I think if you look at, and I know we're going back and it probably has no relevance, but then it does, because I do think tradition is a big thing. And if you go to the 70s, lost 73, 74, then went on and took a gulp. If you move on to the 80s, they lost 82, 83, then went on and won another treble. Skip the 90s, because that's an outlier with 8 different winners in 10 years. You look at the noughties, they lost a couple of they lost an 02, and then obviously the Puke football won in 03, and then went on and I think made 7 finals on the trot, certainly 6, maybe 7 finals in a row, winning 4 or 5. And obviously the last decade belonged to the Dubs. So there's a very clear lineage in Kerry football where they maybe have a couple of harrowing defeats, and then the genie finally comes out of the bottle. And that's kind of what I see as well on Sunday coming. And believe it or not, I'm going to stick my neck out there. I think in the end, they could win comfortably enough.
Heresy. Eamonn, tell me you
in
don't
the
agree
end,
with
I
them.
do. In the end.
Yeah, a pint will do me.
Half a pint.
Yeah, half a pint, anything. I think, look, I think it's going to be tight and cagey. I'm hopeful that the performance against the Dubs a couple of weeks ago will just kind of unleash something within the lads. I've no doubt, having worked with them, that the potential is there, to win the All-Ireland. But I do respect the challenge that Galway are bringing, and Galway have been just on a bit of a journey. In many ways, actually, they've kind of reminded me a lot of us in 2014, that we weren't given much of a chance that time. And not that we came from nowhere, but I don't think we'd have been in the conversation, and we were improving and going as we were going. And there was a kind of, players were almost surprising themselves with what they were capable of. And I've seen a bit of that in Galway this year. But I just think the experience from 3 years ago for most of the Kerry group, the fact that there's 4 or 5 All-Ireland medal winners in the group already, the Jack factor is a big factor. I just think Kerry will have enough, but I think it will be tight. I think it will be tight.
For my part, I think that Galway have had so many tests and they've learned so much in every single game. And I still, my argument at the start of the year is they've too many potent scorers, and I just don't think Kerry can lock them down. And I think Conor Gleeson he's been sent to goalkeeping Guantanamo, I'd say, for the last month, and he's gonna, if the first high ball that comes in, he's gonna come out like a kamikaze and take all before him. He's gonna be a new man. I'm not worried about Conor Gleeson whatsoever, so that's why I think Galway are going to win, but not comfortably. It'll be close. And Kevin, you agree with me, of course.
I want to steal 30 seconds before I give you my verdict, because as you know, we've been on a good bit, the four of us in the podcast, and Éamonn has developed a reputation now in the G analysis. He's kind of known as ball hop Fitzmaurice, but then he became known as double hop Fitzmaurice. And during the course of my extensive research for the final yesterday, I was looking at one at a critical moment in the match in the middle of the second half. Believe it or not, Shane Ryan came out and hopped the ball twice. And I hasten to add, the co-commentator is the man talking to you now. Who
didn't see it either.
Dreadfully. And in the following game, Kerry against Dublin, Cormac Costello double hop down under the hill. And once again, I was the co-commentator. So it's a very difficult thing to catch him. And I salute you. I'm a long time at the co-coms, and I don't know how you spot them so quickly. But well done. Your reputation is well earned. Your nickname is well earned now.
Oh, yeah.
So that was funny when I was looking. I was thinking of you yesterday.
Thanks, Kevin.
The match itself, I'm where Éamonn is at really as well. I do expect this game to be brought to a significant moment. Third quarter, if we still had the water stops, somewhere down there, and a big decision by a player, hopefully, but it could be an official. That happens too, as you all know.
Could be Hawkeye.
Well, we hope he's
had a tough year.
Yeah, he has. He's out of hospital, and we're hoping he's fully recovered.
He's on the rumour mill down in Kerry as well about not being fully fit for Sunday.
Yeah.
Cataracts.
Well, let's with the standard of forward on view, I think they'll be splitting the posts a lot. Even Hawkeye should be able to handle those. I think Kerry will win it. But I can't rule out Galway, because I've been around too long watching them to know that, Damien Comer sticks the ball in the net in the 54th, 55th minute, and Shane Walsh tags on 2 monsters. You remember Jeff Fallon in that big final and those big points, and the next thing, the whole shooting gallery swings, and now the pressure points come on. And yet we know Kerry have got a magnificent gut check in the semi-final. So that's why I'm thinking they will see it out, but I don't think it'll be simple. And I see maybe a 2, 3 point, 4 point win for Kerry.
Okay. Well, we're all looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good final. Can be followed obviously on RTÉ television. You're back on RTÉ2 this week, Rory.
RTÉ2 this week.
You're off the growing up channel. Yeah.
It's fantastic actually, because if the game went to extra time, being on RT2 offers you slightly more flexibility because the Angelas obviously has to happen at 6 o'clock.
For whom the bell tolls. Yeah.
There you go.
Listen on Radio and RTÉ Radio 1, as always, Sunday Sport, and we'll have coverage across the RTÉ website and the RTÉ News app. And myself and Rory, and maybe these two, maybe two others, who knows, we'll be back on Monday to review the final. So enjoy the match, everybody, and we'll chat to you then. Good luck. Goodbye.
How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it.